Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Impact Church. I apologize if I seem a little tired today. I was at the Ravens game last night. There's some people I said I would not say anything. But all I want you to know is, we went to the Ravens game. My brother and I decided to get McDonald's at midnight, which is a mistake. But I got home at 1 o'clock. If we lost, I was going to cancel church today. I'm telling you, I was not going to be here. So, but anyways, welcome to Impact Church. I've been married for 13 years. My wife Erica was helping seat some people. She's around here somewhere. And I met my wife at a housewarming party that I was having. Myself, my brother, and two of my friends were all moving into a house. We were inviting friends over. We had just gotten out of college, and my brother invited a girl we used to go to youth group with to come over, and she didn't want to come by herself, so she dragged her college roommate, which happened to be Erica. And Erica was like, I really don't want to go. I don't know these people. Fine, I'm going to go. But she said, when I go, I'm just going to go. I'm going to sit on the couch. I'm not going to dress up. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to come and sit around. So she came, and she had already met my brother before, and she wasn't impressed. And then what she told me is she remembers I was walking down the steps to where she was, and she saw me, and she said, oh, Shane has a brother. But I hear it as, oh, Shane has a brother. That's what I hear it as. And I saw her, and I went to my brother and my two other friends, all of us single, and I'm like, dibs. I'm going after her. Okay, no one else, because I know them. They're like wolves. They would go after her. So I was like, I'm going to go talk to her. I talked to her. I spent the little amount of game that I did have. It worked enough for us to get a date. We went on a couple dates. We kind of broke up for a little bit. We got back together. And then 6 months later, we were engaged. 8 months later, we were married. Way too fast, but it worked out. Okay, so, and ever since then, ever since I met her and we started dating and we were serious, ever since then, it's been happily ever after. No struggles. Why are you laughing? No struggles. No issues. All bliss. Never anything bad. No, of course not, right? Any relationship has ups and downs. Any relationship has things that are hard to get through. Every relationship, you have to put work into it. That's the one thing. When I do premarital counseling with people, right away I tell them, we think love is this feeling and we're going to have forever. No, it's work. That's what love is. Love is, you know what? I'm going to show you every day by the work I put into it. And my wife and I, we have done a lot of work in our 13 years. We've met with couples that we admire, that we want to be like them. So we ask them a lot of questions of how their marriage is going and how they got to where they were. We've read books together. We've read journals together. We've done workbooks together. We've had very hard conversations with each other. We've had hard seasons together. And then about 8 years ago, my wife and I listened to a sermon series called What Happy Couples Know by Andy Stanley. Andy Stanley is one of my favorite pastors to listen to. And this sermon series completely changed the way that my wife and I looked at our relationship, looked at our marriage, and how we interact with each other. It completely changed it. It's so much so that every time I do premarital counseling with people, I suggest for them to go listen to that sermon series because it completely changed how we do things. And for you today, we're going to go over this. We're going to condense this series into one sermon today. And we're going to give you the advice that we received from this sermon. And if you take this advice that we're going to give today, and you take it in your current romantic relationships, in your hopeful future romantic relationships, or even if you take it into your friendships, even though we're going to be talking about it in the lens of romantic relationships, but you can definitely apply this in your friendships. If you do it, I promise you, it will completely change it. It will change your relationship or it will change your future relationships. See, when we enter into a relationship, we all come with this. It is a box of hopes, dreams, and desires. Every single one of us, no matter who you are, we all show up with this box. This is a God-given box. This box is built from your tradition, how you're brought up. It was built from the way your parents were, whether it was good or bad. It was built from your own strength, from how God created you. This is a good box. And inside this box are all of your hopes and dreams and desires when it comes to romantic relationships. Things like this. Hopes, dreams, desires when it comes to money. Like, how are we going to spend the money? Are we going to have a joint bank account? Are we going to have two separate bank accounts? How much are we going to save? When are we going to retire? How are we going to do kids' allowances? Hopes, dreams, desires for that. When it comes to our time, how do we manage our time? How much time do we go out with friends? How do we work with the in-laws or our parents? How do we manage the time with maybe future kids one day? Our hopes, dreams, desires when it comes to that. How about our chores? Okay, who's going to do what chores? Who's going to do the dishes? Who's going to be responsible for cutting the grass? Who's going to make the dinner? Who's going to do those kind of things? Hopes, dreams, desires when it comes to chores. Kids, if we maybe want kids one day. This is my daughter's doll, and she told me, do not mess up the hair. That's what she said. She hasn't played with this doll in 3 years, but now today she cares. Hopes, dreams, desires when it comes to kids. How many kids do you want to have? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to have 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, 4, or why would you do more than that? But maybe you want to, right? It's your own hopes, dreams, and desires. What do you want to name your kids? How you either want boy or girl? Hopes, dreams, desires when it comes to our kids. How about this? Maybe when it comes to our house or our future house. What kind of house do we want to live in? Where do we want to live? Do we want to live in an apartment, in a duplex, in a single-family home? Do we want to save to have this big house one day? Hopes, dreams, desires, and what your house is going to look like. Here's one, like what vehicle are you going to drive? Are you going to drive a nice sports car? Are you going to have kids and you're never going to drive a minivan, but then you learn one day, minivans, you know what? You're not cool anyways and you're a parent. Just get a minivan. It's so much easier, I promise. But maybe that, hopes, dreams, desires for what you're going to drive one day. Here's one. I was trying to figure out a prop for this, for intimacy, and I asked my wife for some suggestions. She said candle because you need to worry about romance. My suggestions were not good. Like should I bring fuzzy handcuffs? What should I be bringing for this? But we all have it, right? We all have hopes. I don't have those, by the way. But just I would buy some. We all have hopes, dreams, desires when it comes to this, though. It's important to talk about because we all have those, like what that's going to look like, how much we're going to do it, that kind of stuff, right? Even this, conflict and how we deal with conflict resolution. Maybe in your family, you guys yelled and got it all out and everything was good. So you think that's the way to do it. Or maybe your family, you took some time and you just held it down deep. So that's what you think the best way to do it. We all have hopes, dreams, and desires for each one of these things. The problem with this is that these hopes, dreams, and desires that, again, are God-given, you don't have to apologize for it. This is your hopes, dreams, and desires. It's perfectly fine. Literally everyone has it. In the center of this box of hopes, dreams, and desires, in the center of this is you. These are your hopes. These are your dreams. These are your desires. It's normal. It happens for everybody. So when we get into a relationship, a lot of times we get into a relationship thinking that the person we are dating or the person we might marry one day or the person we did marry, we like them or want to have a relationship with them because they fit into this box of our hopes, dreams, and desires. And when we enter into a relationship, what we all do is we take this box with us and say, here you go. This is my hopes and dreams and desires, and I expect you to fulfill this now. We all do it. We all have this box. The problem is, when we bring this box into a relationship, they don't receive it as hopes, dreams, and desires. They receive it as expectations. This is what I'm expected to do now. This is my duty. This is my homework assignment. This is my responsibility. We are now expected to fulfill all these hopes, dreams, and desires. It happens for each one of us. It is natural. It isn't what we hope for. It's what they hope for. It is what we dreamed about. It's what they dreamed about. It is what we desire. It's what they desire. And when you first enter a relationship, a lot of times we go, you know what? I'm in a relationship, so I know it's expectations, but I'm going to fulfill it because I'm in love and I want to. And that works for a little bit. But over time, these expectations will just wear you down. It will become exhausting. Here's the problem with expectations. Expectations creates a debt-debtor relationship. That's what all expectations do. Creates a debt-debtor relationship. When Erica and I first got married, this is exactly what we did. We agreed on what would happen. We agreed on whose jobs were what. We agreed to it. I was in charge of taking out the trash. I was in charge of taking out the trash and cutting the grass. She was in charge of laundry. We agreed. Before we got married, that's what we agreed on. We agreed whoever made dinner, the other one did the dishes. If I made dinner, she would do the dishes and vice versa. If she made dinner, I would do the dishes. We agreed to it. So when I made dinner and she did the dishes, do you know how thankful I was for that? I wasn't thankful at all. Why? It's what I expect. We made an agreement. I did my part. You now need to do your part. It's a debt-debtor relationship. I did my end of the bargain. You now need to fulfill your end of the bargain. How much appreciation do you show someone who pays you what they owe you? Think of it this way. If you order a pizza and you pay a delivery fee, you pay a tip beforehand, and you pay for the pizza. When the guy shows up with your pizza, how much appreciation do you have for the guy bringing the pizza? Very little. Why? All he's doing is fulfilling what you already paid for. He owes you that pizza. You paid for the pizza. You paid for the delivery fee. You paid his tip. He needs to give you the pizza now, right? We rarely express gratitude for what we've come to expect. The problem with a debt-debtor relationship and the problem that expectations creates when it becomes a debt-debtor relationship, the problem with it is it eliminates the possibility of unconditional love. Owe you eliminates love you. All they can do is match your expectations. They can rarely go past it. Whenever it's a debt-debtor relationship, that is what happens. In an environment of expectations, you cannot see love. They are meeting the expectations, so why should you be grateful? It's part of the deal. You have eliminated the possibility for love to be recognized or expressed. I see this all the time in relationships. Hey, I went out with my friends, so now you can go out with your friends tomorrow. Hey, I took care of the kids tonight, so you take care of the kids tomorrow. It's a debt-debtor relationship. Expectations creates a debt-debtor relationship. So when we come into our relationships with our hopes, dreams, and desires, we hand it off, which turns into expectations. When we do that, when two eyes get together, here's some things that can happen when we show up with this box. When two eyes get together, one, we leave. That's a possibility. We leave. Because we get there and we go, you know what? The hopes, dreams, and desires that I have aren't being fulfilled. You know what? I don't know if I agree with your hopes, dreams, and desires. I don't want to live that way. So for some of us, if we don't feel like these are being fulfilled and the box that we have to take we don't like, we go, you know what? I'm leaving. And what do? We take our box with us. We take it to our next relationship, hoping that they will fulfill our hopes, dreams, and desires. When two eyes get together, one, we leave. Two, sometimes we win. We are able to convince the other one, you know what? This is the box we want. Look at your parents. Your box like your parents. Do you really want to be like your parents? No, you don't. This is the box. This is the box we would need to live out of. And if this is you and you win, life is good. Because you're winning. All your hopes and dreams and desires are being fulfilled. Life is great. Like, it's awesome. It's great when that happens. Life is great. But whenever somebody wins, there's another person. This is the third person. When two eyes get together, we may leave, we may win, or we may conform. If one wins, the other one loses. The other one just has to conform. We go, okay, you know what? I'm going to live out of their box. You know what? I'm going to push my hopes and dreams and desires aside. I'm just going to live out of their box. And then what happens is we become someone that we're not to conform to someone who won't. We abandon who we are to make another person happy. And it can work, but not permanently. Because at the end of the day, if you are compromising and becoming someone that you aren't, you lose respect for your partner, and your partner actually loses respect for you. So sometimes we have our boxes. We may leave. We may win because we're able to convince the other one. We may conform, say, you know what, I'll just live out of their box. Or, number 4, we compromise. You know what, here's what we'll do. I have my box. You have your box. I'll take a little bit of my box. You take a little bit out of your box. We'll make a brand new box together. It's great. And for a lot of us, we think this is the goal. If we just compromise well, this is the goal. And it can work. We'll take 50% out of here, 50% out of here. We agree to the terms, and we hold each other accountable. It becomes contractual. Hey, didn't we already agree on this? Didn't we decide this? You know, I do bath time, and so you need to clean the kitchen, right? We decided that, didn't we? We moved to this neighborhood that I didn't want to move into, so we said I could decorate. We decided that, right? Didn't we already decide what we're doing for holidays, that we're spending Thanksgiving with my parents and then Christmas with yours? Didn't we already decide that? You know what? You went out with your friends last weekend. I'm going out with my friends this weekend. Didn't we already decide that? There's nothing wrong with compromise. You can do it, and you can make it to the end compromising. A lot of people do. I just believe there's a better way. And I believe Scripture tells us that there is a better way. Here's the problem with compromise. Compromise is fueled by the wrong commitment. Compromise is fueled by the commitment to the relationship, not to the person. Listen, I don't want Erica committed to my marriage. I want her committed to me. That's the difference. Because at the end of the day, when eyes get together, We may leave, we may win, we may conform, we may compromise, but ultimately, we loses. We loses. So what's the answer? What's the solution? Because we all have this box. We all try to hand it off. What do we do with our boxes? What do we do? If compromise is not the best way, how do we do it? And it's the advice that Erica and I received that changed how we look at our relationship. It changed our years and years of our relationship, of our marriage. It changed everything. And you can write this down. It's this mindset. If you start to apply this mindset, it will change everything. Here's the mindset. You know what? You owe me nothing, and I owe you everything. If you put that mindset personally, you know what? You don't owe me anything, and I owe you everything. It will change everything. If the answer to the question, hey, what does he owe you, or what does she owe you? If you decide to answer it as nothing, it will change. They don't owe you anything, but instead, you owe them everything. This is all about gratitude. Gratitude breaks that debtor relationship that so many marriages live by. When Eric and I first got married, we had these agreements. All right, if I do the dinner, then you do the dishes, vice versa. But then you know what happened? Kids showed up. And then it's just survival at the fittest at that point. We're just trying to get it through the day, right? So all of a sudden, we had to start going, you know what? It's not about what you owe me or I owe you. We're a team. In fact, the Bible says two become one. So now we change our mindset. So now she does the dishes, even though I made dinner. I go, hey, thank you for doing the dishes. She goes, well, that's the agreement. It's like, no, you don't owe me that. You don't owe me dishes, but you're doing it again. I appreciate you doing that. If I take the trash out, she goes, hey, thank you for taking the trash out. It's like, well, I always take the trash. Like, I always do that. Yeah, but you don't owe me that. That's not you don't owe me that. I'm grateful for the fact that you do it because you owe me nothing. I owe you everything. Where does this idea come from? It comes from Ephesians chapter 5. Ephesians chapter 5. In Ephesians chapter 5, Paul gives instructions to a Christian household, and he specifically talks to husbands and wives. And he talks directly to the wives, and then he talks directly to the men. So let's start with what he says to the wives in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22 through 24. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Now, we read this verse in 2025 and go, ooh, I don't know if I like that. Seems like a little outdated, right? It seems like it's maybe not the way it's supposed to go. But this is one of the verses that is misquoted and misunderstood more than any verse I know. See, what Paul is saying here, when you look at the original Greek that he wrote in, when you look at the original Greek, he's talking to an audience that this idea, wives submit to your husbands, was completely normal. In fact, it was the law. Like you had to. Back then, they had something called portria potestas. Men had legal jurisdiction over their children and their wives. So wives submit to your husbands, of course, or I'll go to jail if I don't do that. That's the audience he is talking to here. In the original Greek, when it was written, that first verse, wives submit to yourselves to your own husbands due to the Lord. If you read it in the original Greek, here's actually how it is worded. Wives, to your own husbands as to the Lord. That's how it's originally worded. That word submit's not in there. So we go, well, where did that word submit come from? Well, back in when you wrote in Greek, you would establish the verb, and then everything after that would just go back and reference to that verb. So there's a verse prior to this that says the word submit that they pull from. What's that verse? Well, here's what it says, the verse prior to this, verse 21. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. In light of what God has done for you, we are to love other people with it. So out of reverence to Christ, we submit. The word here is, this is mutual submission is what this is. Mutual submission. I like how Andy Stanley defines this. Here's how we define mutual submission. Putting each other first by going first in an effort to be last. Putting each other first by going first in an effort to be last. I decide to submit to you. You decide to submit to me. We submit to each other, mutual submission. So what does it look like when it comes to our boxes? We place our partner's hopes, dreams, and desires in front of ours, and our partner places our hopes, dreams, and desires in front of theirs. Mutual submission. We are called to mutually submit to each other. This is the key to a happy and long relationship. I'm here for you, and you're here for me. But I'm not here for you so I can get what I want. I'm here for you because Christ was here for me. I'm going to use everything I am, and I'm going to give everything I have for the benefit of what benefits you the most. I owe you everything. You owe me nothing. I will put you first by going first in an effort to be last. It doesn't mean you have the same roles. It doesn't mean you have the same gifts. It doesn't mean you have the same talents, but it means you have the same exact value. So first, Paul tells the wives to submit, husband and wives to submit to each other. That's the very first thing he says. Hey, submit to each other. Then he goes directly to the wives. Hey, wives, submit to your husbands. And they would go, yeah, we know. We don't want to go to jail. We have to do that. And then he goes to the husbands. And listen to what he says to these husbands. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. The word love there is agape. This is a selfless, unconditional, sacrificial love, the same love that we see God show all of humanity through Jesus. This is radical in this day and age. Love my wife. She's my property. I don't have to love my wife. Like, I own her. That's what they think at this point. But no, Paul's saying, no. Love her. Love her. First, I already told you to submit, and now I'm also saying to love the same way Christ loved the church. This is a game changer in the culture. Wives submit, yeah, we know. But husbands, who I already told you to submit, you also need to love. He continues, in the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does for the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Guys, you are to love her as if she is you, because according to Scripture, she is you, because the two become one. So love her by sacrificing everything for her. That is what Paul is saying in a culture where they would not care about women. That is what Paul is saying here. Mutual submission. Put each other first by going first in an effort to be last. Living in your relationship like they owe you nothing and you owe them everything. How can you mutually submit to each other if this is in the way? You can't do it. When you're boxed in the way, you cannot mutually submit. This is why you operate in your relationships like they owe you nothing and you owe them everything. You put each other first by going first in an effort to be last. You put your box aside and you mutually submit to each other's boxes. So how do you change us from taking our box, putting it aside, and not receiving their box as expectations? So that's the problem. Sometimes we get the other person's box and it's like homework and what we have to do. How do we change it? Here's what you do. You decide every day, you know what? You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. That is what being one means. His best over yours. Her best over yours. So the question I want you to wrestle with this week, when you think about your box, here's the question I want you to wrestle with. What's in your box? Like, what's inside here? All of us have one. There's nothing wrong with having one. We all have one. What is in your box? If you're here and you're single and you're dating or you're hoping to get married one day, this is really important for you. To know what's in your box before you even meet that person, this will change everything. This will set your marriage up for success way before you even meet that person. Figure out what's in your box. What's in your box? Married couples, here's what I want you to do this week. This week, I want you to think about what is in your box. What is in your box? And then I want you to ask each other, hey, what's in your box? What's in your box? Now, wives in the room, when you go to your husband, you say, hey, what's in your box? You know what he's probably going to say? Nothing. He doesn't know. That's why. Here's the problem. He might not know, but he expects you to fulfill it. But you got to know how to articulate what is even in there. So guys, I'm giving you a couple days. Wives, don't ask him today. Ask him Wednesday, okay? Guys, get to work. You need to figure it out. Guys, ask your wives, hey, what's in your box? And here's what I want to say. Both of you, do not argue about it. Do not say, how do you not know what's in that box? Especially us guys, we don't know. We don't catch on these things. Just tell us, please. We don't know what's in there. So what is in your box? Here's why this question is so important. It's an all-in question. You cannot mutually submit without knowing this answer. And asking this question shows you're willing to submit. So what's in your box? Whenever I do premarital counseling, I give a very short version of this sermon. And here's the objection I get almost every time I do it. But what if I submit and they don't? It's mutual submission. But what if I submit and they don't submit? Here's what it's kind of like. Here's what we get worried about. We feel like it's almost like a tug of war for the box. And we have our end, when the other side is like, okay, we're going to mutually submit, right? Pastor Eric told us we need to do that. So on the count of 3, we're going to drop our rope, right? You're going to drop it, okay? I want to make sure you drop it. Okay, 1, 2, you promise you're going to drop your end? Because I'm going to drop my end. Okay, 1, 2.5, 3. And we get worried that if we drop our rope, the other person's going to pull it, and you're going to live in their box forever. I get it. And that can happen. I get it. It happens. And this illustration is not a fix-all to everything, okay? I don't want you to think of it as that. Marriage takes mutual submission. But here is the key verse that I don't want to skip over. We'll go back to it. Verse 21. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. What is the gospel message? God, knowing we can never make it to him, went first, pursued first. Jesus, God through Jesus and his sacrifice and his death, dropped the rope first for the hope that you will come back to him even though many people will not. That's the gospel message. So we submit to each other, not out of reverence for that person, not out of reverence for you, but out of reverence for Christ. After following his model, we go, you know what? I'm going to submit. That does not mean you submit to ungodliness. You don't submit to ungodliness. We're never called to do that. But you submit to each other out of reverence for Christ. You say, you know what? I'm going to be the first to drop the rope because Jesus was the first to drop the rope so that I could have a relationship with God. I can't promise you they're going to drop their end. But that is why mutual submission must come out of reverence for Christ, because you are following his lead. Christ moved first, and you are called to move first. And it may not fix it. He may never change. She may never change. It may never end up the way you are hoping. But when you say, I'm going to drop my end, I'm not going to submit to ungodliness, but I will submit, because that's what I'm called to do out of reverence for Christ. When you do that, your relationship might not change, they might not change, but you will. You'll change. I'm going to honor him, I'm going to honor her, I'm going to honor God by mutually submitting. Not out of reverence for them or their relationship or for me, but out of reverence for Christ. So the advice I want to give you today is to go home and say, you know what? You don't owe me anything, and I owe you everything. I'm going to put you first. I'm going to go first by putting you first in an effort to be last. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for being the God who loves us, who came for us, who gave your son for us so that we can have the opportunity to connect back to you, that even though you've given us free will and a lot of us do not choose you, that you still came for us first. And thank you for showing that model to us that we can now take into every relationship that we have. God, I pray that you convict each one of us, whether we're in a relationship, whether we're married, whether we've been married for a long time, or whether we are hoping to get married one day. Pray that you convict each one of us of how we can put our end of the rope down, how we can submit out of reverence to you. So we know that when we do that, that you will begin to change us. And thank you for being the God who models what real love looks like. Help us to live that out in our relationships. In your son's name, amen.